Happy Freedom Rally. And first up we have Stephen Mandile. He is a U.S. Army National Guard, and he's pretty active here in the Massachusetts scene. Stephen?
Hi, thank you for coming out. My name is Stephen Mandile. I am the president and founder of Veterans Alternative Healing Incorporated, and what we focus on is getting the cannabis culture together with the veteran community and get them joined in, because I feel like we understand the same things of taking care of people and being there for everyone that needs help, and not just special people, just everybody. So we're trying to get the view on cannabis to be better than the view on just doing what your doctor tells you, taking the medicine your doctor's telling you to do, because that leads down to a road of just wanting to die and actual death. So much to the point, it's an epidemic in America right now. It's a huge epidemic in Massachusetts. So we like to take veterans and get them out, get them to the referrals, talking to other like-minded veterans so they feel more comfortable in making their own choice, even if it's not a choice, it's not popular, and it's still just as much a stigma on cannabis as opioids, which makes no sense to me. So we like to get the veterans together, and at the same time we do like to go to the State House and represent veterans and cannabis there, and represent the cannabis community. Let them know that, you know, you didn't know me for 10 years because I didn't leave my house. I was on medicine that I just wanted to be in my room. I would not take a shower for weeks at a time. I would not even leave my house or yard for weeks at a time. And this isn't, it's real. It's all of us up here to prove it. So yeah, just try to be as active as you can. Don't say there's nothing you can't do. Give it a shot and see what happens.
Hi, my name is Mike Whiter. I am a former United States Marine. I was in the Marine Corps for 11 years. I'm from Philadelphia. I run Pennsylvania Veterans for medical marijuana, and I also am a photographer, and I started a photo project called Operation Overmed, which it depicted veterans who were addicted to pills just like I was. I was on 40 different pills over a period of 5 years, all prescribed by the VA, opiates, benzos, antidepressants, you name it, I was on it, and as most of these vets up here probably were too. And we've all decided to start using cannabis to take our lives and our health care into our own hands, because the VA isn't doing the right thing by vets. So Operation Overmed was a photo essay that depicted veterans who were addicted to pills and started using cannabis instead, and decided to throw the pills away. And you know, now we have saved our own lives, and now we're fighting for other vets across the country to do the same thing. And that photo essay actually gained a lot of traction and made a lot of vets reach out and talk about this, and it started a conversation. So that's what we need to do here, is start a conversation about veterans and cannabis, because it's still a stigmatized thing. And you know, the VA's go-to is always going to be the moneymaker, which is big pharma. And you know, we need to change that. The VA needs to start recommending cannabis for patients, and that's why we need to reschedule or deschedule and, you know, just get rid of all this crap around cannabis and just start doing it, you know. So thanks a lot for coming, and see you soon.
Hi, I'm Nique. I was in the United States Marine Corps during Desert Storm. I did not leave stateside. I do not have combat experience, but I did experience the Corps. When I was in the Corps, I developed a significant eating disorder and exercise addiction that, being on a base with a ratio of 10 to 1, 10 men to 1 women, I used it by working out tremendously, and in turn ended up fighting bulimia and anorexia for most of my life. I was hospitalized at the VA. I do have to say that there were some positives out of it, because they helped me gain a sense of remission, but I also came out of the VA very highly medicated. After that journey, that was around 2004, 2005, and 2011 was diagnosed with breast cancer for the first time. I opted for a mastectomy. There was no traditional medication. I was allergic to tamoxifen, which is a hormone which caused me to feel suicidal. So I opted not to take the tamoxifen, and I had a 4% chance that my cancer was going to come back, in which it did in 18 months. 2013, I was re-diagnosed, and I started my battle with breast cancer again, this time with chemotherapy, radiation, and I was allergic to all the antiemetics, the nausea medications, and some of the traditional meds for the side effects of my chemotherapy. And that's when I had started a blog on Facebook, and people started dropping on my page all this information about cannabis, in which I was afraid to start because my profession, I'm a nurse, and at the time I was a director of nursing. But illness has a way of making you look at things a lot differently, and that's how I got into the world of cannabis. So as a veteran, as a nurse, as a two-time breast cancer survivor, I'm off all traditional medication, and all I use right now is cannabis. I've been in remission right now for 34 months, and my only fear is, again on Friday, I was denied employment because my test came back positive for THC. So this is another struggle that I'm going to be going out there to try to help other nurses and veterans that are using cannabis as medicine, that if we are in the Department of Health, Massachusetts regulated program, why cannot we work, yet my coworker can be using opiates at the nurse's station, and that's okay. Thank you.
Hi everybody, good afternoon, and thank you all for being here, and I truly am honored because this is a year that you guys are all going to make a difference. We're making a difference this year. I want you guys to understand the importance. Listening to Monique's story, Mike and Steve's, I am a physician, I'm a primary care physician, I'm an occupational medicine physician, and I'm proud to say I'm a cannabis therapeutic specialist, and I can honestly say my name is not attached to any opioids for at least 8 years. And I don't take insurance. I don't work for a university. I don't work for a hospital. I don't get Medicare dollars. The only people that I get paid from is my patients. And I love what I do. And I came here 2 years ago, and I was not able to say, I would say, oh, I'm a family doc, Ahmed. That's how I approach cannabis. And you talk about stigma. Now, I proudly say I'm a cannabis therapeutic specialist, and I'm a family doc in Ahmed, and my medicine that I recommend kills nobody. Nobody dies from my medicine that I give my patients. I was one of those doctors that wrote those prescriptions. I was a patient that received these medications. And I am proud to say cannabis is not an entrance drug. It is an exit drug from pharmaceuticals and narcotics. And each one of these people have talked about this. We should say it's not for everybody. I also say that. Cannabis is not for everybody, but it should be a first-line option, not the last resort. And 3 factoids that we'll talk about today, but we're talking about it, and I'm so proud for each of you guys to be here. Thank you very much. And make sure you register to vote and get your vote out there.
Hi, my name's Ellen Brown, and I'm an Air Force veteran. I am the founder of Sensimia Seminars, and I also work with the New England Veterans Alliance. What I hope to do is to educate, to empower everyone to be their own best advocate. I think it's so important that our veterans know that there is an alternative to opioids, and that's cannabis. I did not deploy, but a lot of my friends did, and when they came home, they were absolutely being overprescribed, and I was the one who had to sit them down and let them know that cannabis was an option. And who am I? I need Dr. Uma. We need doctors. We need to get cannabis back in the U.S. pharmacopoeia. And the way we're going to do that is by empowering each other and making sure that we educate each other so that we can work as a force, because the VA needs to hear us, the Department of Public Health needs to hear us, the United States needs to hear us, that these are changes that needs to happen because it's going to benefit the lives of our veterans.
Hi, my name is Kyle Corrao. I served in Iraq in 2003 with 2nd Cav, U.S. Army. Got out in 2004. A couple of years ago, I got really sick of all the medication the VA was trying to stuff down my throat, so I moved to California. I've been growing and making hash out there for 2 years. I just cut down my 2nd season. I make hash for shops. I also own a large rosin press, so I've been crushing rosin. A lot of my hash I sell as cheap as I can for people with edibles and stuff. And I mean, I gave a speech yesterday, and I love what's happening with the laws here, and some things that we can do to encourage, positive, moving forward in that. Break the law. If you have somebody that's sick, has cancer, epilepsy, kids, don't make any concessions. For the law. Break the law. If it's going to save somebody's life, just do it. And the VA, the endless dealings with the VA for veterans, it just needs to stop. Like, people that even vaguely ask for cannabis or a recommendation needs to just get it. When the floodgates open and the feds legalize in a couple of years, like, people that are doing small grows and taking care of their stuff, like Paul Brennan that was speaking earlier, Rob over here, we're all going to be... it's going to be phased out by Walmart. We're going to be getting paid $10 an hour to do labors that took us 15 years to figure out. It's just mass bureaucracy at its finest. I really love what's happening here with the laws, and just, as nice as the police have been the past couple of years, like thanks to Chris Foye and a couple others at MassCann, we got a lot to be thankful for here in Massachusetts. Really do. Thank you very much.
So again, I just want to thank everybody, for sitting here today. And what we're going to discuss are very, current events. This is a climate that's changing every day. And again, my name is Chris Foye. I've been involved with MassCann directly since 2008. When I got out of the military, active duty Army, I was an engineer. I served in a year in Korea, and then I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, where I was attached to a support company for Third ID, and we did ordnance and engineering work along the Iraqi border for a year as well. And I got really lucky in my time there as far as what we saw and what we had to deal with, and luckier than some of my fellow soldiers in future deployments with the same company, and I count my blessings for that. And I also count my blessings that I had a base knowledge of opiates and what they can do to you before I encountered the VA. And when I started my dealings with the VA, they were prescribing me medicines that I already knew I didn't want, and I challenged them in a way that I knew I didn't want these medicines, so I was requesting right off the bat something else, and they didn't really know how to address that. It was kind of just like, well, no, this is what you need to do. And I remember thinking, how soldiers and service members are so, ingrained to do what you're told, follow orders and whatnot, that, it got me thinking of how many, service members are just doing exactly what they're told, but being given the wrong information and not being allowed to have information that's coming out now regarding cannabis and their alternatives that they just aren't exposed to. And so getting to put together things like these, I hope that other veterans will get the message that there are alternatives to what the VA is, their current status quo is. And that's a huge hurdle to get over, is just making sure guys have access to the right information. And so one of the things I'm going to ask, we're going to work our way around. Steve, my first question is for you, because we've gotten to work together a little bit, and the work you're doing in Massachusetts is great. But how what do you think is the biggest stigma or hurdle to go over when you're dealing with your veterans that you know, and then they're coming to you asking you questions like, what is the main reoccurring fear of why they don't want to pursue alternative medicine?
It all comes down from the knowledge and the law. No one wants to break the law, but when I start giving out the facts of how many people are dying on what they're taking compared to how many people are dying what I'm taking, they open their eyes, and then they realize that everything they've been told isn't really based on many facts. The fact that you go to the VA, you sign your treatment plan that they give you, and they're giving you drugs when you tell them that you don't think good all the time, and you are always thinking about suicide, and they'll give you drugs with those side effects. They'll give you medications that aren't going to help you. You go there and you say you don't really think it works, so they up your dose a little more, and it keeps happening. I was there 2 weeks ago to get an x-ray on my neck, and before I even got my x-ray, they're like, oh, well, we'll either have to do surgery or you can take some pills. And I was like, what? I'm not going back on fentanyl. I'm all set. So it's just that type of, there's no knowledge that there actually is something else you can take. And like Kyle was saying, yeah, it's illegal, but who cares? You're going to let someone tell you what to do every day. You're going to let someone, prepare your medicine for you, because that's what they're doing essentially by feeding you all the non-facts.
Yeah, I was dealing with the same thing. You're saying is, and reiterating what Kyle was saying is, these guys need the medicine now, and they're almost more inclined to stay in a black market area and dealings, and because they don't want to get involved with a directory and a state, registration, and that's in itself is scary. When you're dealing with things like out west, where the one of the Supreme Courts out there just supported non-gun rights for cannabis veterans, that's another thing in veterans' minds that they don't want to be subjected to, is having their license to carry called into effect. And when you have Supreme Courts supporting that type of rhetoric, it's a scary thing to get involved in. Mike, what do you think is the biggest hurdles that you've had to deal with in your helping vets and consulting with veterans?
In Pennsylvania, as we know, cannabis is still illegal. That's the biggest hurdle that I've had. Vets are pretty. They're pretty prone to not wanting to break the law and not wanting to break rules, and we followed the rules, the whole time we were in the military, and then we did what we were told to do, and don't break the law, don't break the law, don't do anything wrong, and so we didn't, and now we get out here and we have to break the law in order to medicate ourselves, or we're gonna be zombies. And I personally have zero problem breaking the law. The way I look at it, I broke the law the whole fucking time I was in the military. So, yeah, there's that. And so vets are afraid to break the law. They're afraid to come out of the cannabis closet and say, hey, I smoke weed. They're afraid to be public about it. The vets up here are obviously not afraid to be public about it. But getting other vets on board that's the hardest part, is breaking that stigma and helping them realize that, hey, it's either you save your life illegally or you die by their hand. So that's the biggest hurdle, I think.
I mean, the statistics are staggering when you're considering the over-medicating of veterans and the accessibility of the meds, and then you put them in correlation with the suicide rate and the overdose rate, and it's a real sad situation that a lot of these vets, that are passing away and dying every day, that might not have been in that situation or that dire straits if they had just known that there was alternatives out there. And Dr. Uma, I wanted to ask you, in your line of work, and what type of stigmas do people and reservations do people come with you, and how do you combat those?
I'm laughing because most doctors like their paycheck, okay? So when you are in a system like we are, right, most of the patients are not even able to talk to their doctors about this, you know. There's 3 sets of options that they have. They go to their doctors and they mention this, and they're even thrown out of their practice. Like, we're not even talking about this. Pain clinics, they're given their last prescription and tossed out. That's one option. There's few doctors that totally ignore them and say, you know, if it's working for you, I'm not going to write that prescription because I can't. And that's the third option, is that they actually get involved in it. And so what's happening now is that I am in Massachusetts, and I am a member of the Mass Medical Society, and the Massachusetts Medical Society has clearly made it that we don't accept medical marijuana, and we clearly don't support this whole vote. And they're blatantly saying this. So here I am. I'm not white. I'm not a veteran. I'm not a guy with a Jersey attitude, right? That just flows right along with my mentors here. So you talk about stigma, but we are changing it. We are. We're educating, we're embracing, and we're empowering folks. And that's happening because our patients now are saying, I have a choice. I have a choice whether I want to take this pill or not. And the problem that we have right now is that most people are stuck to get into their disability. In order to maintain their disability, they keep getting their prescription pills filled. So what's happening, this is my theory, is that a lot of these doctors keep writing the pills because that's what we're supposed to do. If one pill doesn't work, up it. If that doesn't work, give another pill. If you have a side effect for that. So it's a wheel that's turning, but ultimately I think the stigma is slowly changing. And if you guys are seeing the papers today, we're starting to talk about this. And it's happening. So educate.
I think education is definitely the biggest, push in the veteran and all patient communities, is because once you have the knowledge that there is an alternative out there, and you just put them right in line together, pills versus cannabis, side effects versus almost no side effects. It's almost like it's aggravating to me. Me personally, I find it. I would. All I ask is of my doctor, honestly, all I would expect of them is to treat cannabis like they treat any other pill. And I'm sure all of you have been there where you're sitting there with your doctor and they're like, all right, we're going to try this, see how it feels, for 2 weeks, and we'll adjust the dosages. We'll see how you feel, if we got to give you a little more, if we got to take you down a little. It's like they're selling you a used car. And it's, I was like, if they even took half that approach to just including cannabis in the discussions, like, all right, here you go. Try this edible, try this, non-solvent, try this vaporizer. We're going to give you 2 weeks on it, and we're going to see how you like it. If not, we'll adjust your levels. But it's just like, no. And at the very least, they could just add it into the discussion where, it's a viable alternative and just let people, try them.
Well, we can't right now. This is what I'm really trying people to understand. We need to deschedule, folks, and I want to make it very, very clear. Deschedule, not reschedule. We have 5 schedules, okay? Cannabis is in Schedule 1, along with heroin, LSD, and ecstasy. Okay, unacceptable. And the reason it's in Schedule 1, and this is where it comes about money. As long as it's in Schedule 1, federal grant money will not be afforded in hospitals, and paychecks come from there. Schedule 1 means that there's no medical use, that there's no medical research in the United States, and the potential for abuse. Okay? So, potential for abuse can happen with anything. No medical research in the United States, lie. The U.S. government has the patent for this and has had the patent since 2003 as an antioxidant neuroprotectant. Medical use, we know it. It was used in this country, folks. It was in the pharmacopoeia. And doctors actually wrote a prescription from 1850 to 1942. So I want the truth to be told. Again, we just want the truth, and let people make their decisions and let people make their choices.
Nique, I got a question, kind of along the same lines with Uma, but in your field of work, it's just a stone wall you're dealing with as far as any type of internal discussions with cannabis and how they're even including it in the discussion? Like, are you it's just no-go on those ends of things?
Right now, as a nurse, and I have my master's degree in nursing leadership, so I'm up against it in a lot of different ways because my background is geriatric and psychiatric nursing. So as I get into the nursing home and I apply for these positions, one facility didn't drug test, so I was able to work there. But with the patient ratios, I decided to leave. So I tried another nursing home and I did not tell them I was a medical marijuana patient. I did the drink, I did all these things so that way I wouldn't pop positive on my urine test. I figured I was all set, and the results came back positive for THC. They questioned me and asked me why I didn't tell them, and I said, this is why I didn't tell you. And they said, well, you're a breast cancer survivor, you should have told us. And I said, this is why I didn't tell you. And they said, thank you for applying, but you cannot work here. Just recently, I applied for a psychiatric hospital in Massachusetts. I've been a nurse for 21 years, by the way, too. And I was honest with them. My resume speaks of I created a cannabis nurse navigator position. I'm working with educating all levels of nurses from CNAs, LPNs, RNs. And so my resume speaks to it. I teach at Northeastern Institute of Cannabis. It's all over my resume. So of course, when I went into my interview, the director of nursing asked what I did with cannabis and asked if I used cannabis. So since the first time I didn't tell them and was denied, I thought this was my chance to be honest. So I told them that I was a cannabis patient and that I'm still in remission. The facility itself was okay with it. They had never had somebody that was honest about being in the program. They kind of guided me through the process. They knew that I was legally in the program. They said, go do your drug test. When it comes back, we'll submit your medical card and you'll be all set because you're in a program from the Department of Health. I said, okay. The test results came back. Corporate office is in Tennessee. I received a phone call from a doctor from the medical lab. He asked me if I was in a study to use cannabis. Well, the federal government runs studies. How could I be in a study? So I sent him my medical card, told him I was a 2-time breast cancer survivor. The director of HR called me on Friday and said, Monique, I'm very sorry, but you cannot work here. So for veterans and for nurses, it's very difficult because I know when I was working, I first became a patient in Rhode Island and I was working at a dispensary doing outreach. And when I contacted the Rhode Island VA, I asked them because it was a medically legal state. And they told me that because they were a federal entity, that they could not talk to patients. They could not talk to veterans about it. But if the veterans asked them about it, then it was something that they could discuss. They could not recommend. But if they were a patient in a program, the VA could not deny them benefits, could not remove them from a detox program, an addiction program, or any medical program in the system. But again, I was also supposed to be protected with my medical card and a nursing job. So this is where the fear comes from. Trying to find employment, trying to find health care, trying to stay on your benefits. There's a lot of vets that have come back that are in these medical situations that have disability, and some of them are 100% disabled, and they are in fear that, okay, if I don't take your medications, I'm going to lose my benefits, and then what am I going to do? So it's, I finally came out of the closet. My family thinks I'm crazy. My coworkers think I'm crazy. I'm probably going to end up working at Dunkin' Donuts for a while, but I am not going to change who I am and what I do because it has saved my life. And when the federal government, whoever it is that the person it is that's making these calls, when they themselves or their loved one is diagnosed with a life-threatening or debilitating illness and they have exhausted all their resources of traditional medications, I want to know if they would not come over to the side of cannabis, because that's what brought me here.
That's one of the main things I've dealt with in my buddies, and when they ask me questions, and kind of being on this, platform with the rally, my guys see what I'm doing online, and they're interested. They ask questions, pointing them in the right direction and kind of educating guys that I got to serve with personally is probably one of the most rewarding parts of doing what I do, because they're genuinely interested and they genuinely want to know what the information that they are not being told. Like, some of these guys are from places like Arizona and further down south where the laws are less progressive. And it's like night and day in our situation to their situation. And it really needs to be addressed at a federal level for specifically, situations like this. Veterans, Nique was touching on it with their 100%, they're 90% disabled, and that means 100%, 90% of most of their welfare, and their money and, what the benefits that they earned comes from the federal government. So they're not going to go and put themselves in a situation where that federal money might be taken from the feds because they're breaking federal laws, whether or not it's legal in their state or not. And guys are terrified of that. They have families to take care of and they have houses to maintain. And they'll take it on the chin as far as, all right, I'll stick it out with the VA because it's, for the better of my family, whereas, they can take care of both. They can take care of their family and their mental well-being. Ellen, you're pretty well known around Boston. Have you had an opportunity to deal with that, where you get to educate people that you served with, and have any of your people asked you questions and tried to pursue further information?
A lot of my friends, what happens when you're in the military is you make friends all over the world. We're all stationed in different places, but we do keep track of each other, especially on social media. And when they see what it is I'm up to, they have questions. And that's my favorite thing, is taking questions. And they want to know about the endocannabinoid system. They want to know about the medicine they're being prescribed and how can I get off of it, and what kind of cannabis should I use, and what's the difference between solvent and solventless, what's an indica, what's a sativa. So I think it's really important, especially because there's such a lack of knowledge at the VA. There's such a lack of knowledge by and large in the medical field, that we need to always be educating ourselves, so that if we educate ourselves, reach one, teach 10. And I think that's so important, because my students go off to different states, or they have family members, and then they'll come to me and they tell me how the education I gave them benefited somebody I didn't even know. And it's wonderful where paying it forward, you see it pay off down the line, because somebody says to you, I slept for the first time, I was able to get off my medication. A lot of veterans do struggle with PTSD, and they don't know where to go, and they don't know what to do with cannabis, and they are worried about those stigmas. And Monique and Dr. Uma, being in the medical field, putting their license online, putting their reputation online, that's so commendable, because we need more of that. All of the doctors should be standing up. All of us need to be standing up. We each need to be having these conversations with our primary care providers. And the best way you can do that is to educate yourself about your endocannabinoid system, what medicine would be good for you, why cannabis is in fact one of the best alternatives to anything. And cannabis cannabis is also great preventative medicine. So that's why it's so important that we think about things like legalization, voting yes on 4, so that way I don't have to go to my doctor and get a recommendation and deal with the scrutiny. And in Massachusetts, I want that mandatory registration abolished. I will not stop until it is, and I want every single one of you to help me. This is egregious. It is a HIPAA violation. It is a human rights violation, and I am so angry at how our patients are being treated like criminals, and I have contacted the Department of Public Health. That is your complaint department. You want to know who's making the rules? That is your complaint department. Complain to the DEA. Get a hold of your state representatives. Let them know how you feel. The more of us that reach out, the more they're gonna go, oh wow, I heard that mandatory registration, nobody wants that, nobody wants that. This seems to be a big pushback on this issue. Why is it? The more we speak up, the more they hear us. There's strength in numbers. That's why it's important for you. Dr. Uma holds a support group once a month, and that's so important because you're able to go and talk with other patients. I hold free classes for veterans. Wherever you can go where you can get reputable information, take that information on and then think about, where could I use this, where could I impart it to others, because I love seeing my veterans come back to me and saying, hey, this helped me with my condition and I was able to get away from pharmaceuticals. It's so gratifying, and you guys will all be able to do that by reaching out and taking care of each other, because the federal government is not going to do it for you.
Kyle, you want to? Yeah.
I just want to add to something that Ellen mentioned, and that was HIPAA. And I think that all of us understand HIPAA and the confidentiality that we're supposed to be protected by as patients. So my biggest defense for that doctor asking me for my paperwork from a doctor to show that I was in a study for breast cancer for my cannabis use, when there is not one nurse I have ever worked with that has asked why he or she was on opiates, or why he or she was on benzos, and why he or she is still allowed to work on probation even though they have a record of diverting narcotics and using on the job, but they're allowed to be employed. So HIPAA is a huge, huge piece that really bothers me.
Uma, you follow?
Well, you know, as Dr. Uma, one of the hats I wore is as an MRO, which stands for as a medical review officer. And you mentioned you got a call from somebody, right? So let me explain to you guys, how many of you have peed in a cup for a drug test? Okay, so every time you guys pee in a cup, there's 2 types of drug tests. It's either a federal job or non-federal. Now, companies can choose what they want to do in their drug policy. But the bottom line is, if you test positive for medications, a benzo, opioids, for example, if Monique tested this positive, I would give her a call and say, listen, you tested positive. She says, you know, I have a little sleeping issue, so I take a benzo. Oh, I just had dental work done, so I had the opioids. Guess what I report if Chris was her employee? As a negative test. She's flying high, okay, at work. But because she has HIPAA protecting her, I report that as a negative because it's still under Schedule 2 and down. Because cannabis is in Schedule 1, and again, descheduling this, I can't repeat this enough. We need it completely off as every schedule. We need to legalize it, and it should be considered as a supplement. People have a endocannabinoid deficiency, folks. If I was diabetic, you're not going to say I'm a bad person, lose the weight. I have a deficiency. I need a supplement. That's what this is about. It's a plant that has killed nobody. Please continue to educate, embrace, and empower. Reach 1, teach 10. I keep saying that. Continue to do that.
You know, one of the my favorite parts of being involved with growing is kind of the therapeutic side of it and just the act of growing. And I wanted to ask our man on the hill here out in California, you know, how much, not just the medicine itself, but you know, the relationship with the plant and the, you know, the therapeutic side of the actual growing, like how much has that helped you? And do you think that could help veterans, getting veterans involved in, you know, seeds in the dirt and being involved in the relationship of growing their own medicine?
Jeez, I like that idea. It's just gardening. It's a lot of manual labor, which is a beautiful thing. And when you're around, you know, stupendously large medicinal cannabis plants, that certainly doesn't hurt, you know, your psyche. Just being able to harvest them and do all that stuff and be able to sit here on this table right here smoking something that I made from seed to bubble hash. You know, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. You know, it's just doing it, getting out there and doing it, and just not talking about it so much, and you know, just do it. Really, it's gardening it's very therapeutic. Being around flowering cannabis plants, and they love it when you talk to them. The CO2, they love it. It's beautiful. Music too, you know, is what it is.
You know, it's getting people proactive in their, you know, their health and their recovery. You know, beyond just doing what you're told, beyond just opening the cabinet, taking out a pill. You know, it's you're actively being involved in your own well-being, and I think that's something that could benefit them far more than the medicine itself.
Can you sit here? Thanks.
And make sure to hydrate always. I hope everybody's hydrating out there. The Freedom Rally can get you. Steven?
Just also a quick peek into how things work at the VA once you've come out and told them that you use cannabis. So I don't take any of the medicines that my doctor tries to give me. I don't take any of the medicines that the psychiatrists try to give me. So I'm considered combative because I just don't, non-compliant. So I don't go there for my help. I'm 100% disabled. Everything, all my benefits are from the government. So I called a vet center. It's in New Bedford. Vet center is a branch of the VA, but not a branch of the VA. They're funded by the VA, but it's for veterans who've been deployed, combat veterans. And I wanted to talk to them about going to the New Bedford one and talking about cannabis to other veterans. I was told I wasn't allowed in. I was told I have an agenda. I said, yeah, I fucking have an agenda. I want to help veterans. What the hell are you doing there? Like, what's your agenda? So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with it from our doctors to the people that work at the places where we're supposed to get help, telling a veteran that they can't come in there for help. So basically the only community that takes care of me now is the cannabis community. And I'm healthier and happier than I've ever been in my life. I'm broker than I've ever been, but whatever, it's fine. I take it this way over their way. I need every day, every single day.
Awesome. We're going to just address anything anybody else wants to have. If anybody has any questions, we'd love to take a few. Come on up, man.
I just want to know, I mean, you all have experience in it, but especially Dr. Uma, I've seen a radical difference. I've been trying to treat patients with all sorts of ailments for years, and a lot of the really sick ones, I could give them a copious amount of medicine in quite a variety, but a lot of them, it ends up sitting on their shelves. And I've had a few that have passed on, and that medicine that could have helped them, not necessarily saved them, but at least helped them, sat on the shelf because they were afraid to use it, whether it be through smoking or something that they weren't accustomed to or were afraid of. In the past few years, I've seen a radical difference in using medical packaging and medical apparatus to apply cannabis and having that affect the way people take them. Like my friends right now are making tons of RSO caps, and I've seen people actually taking the medicine just simply because it's in a pill or the hashish that's in a syringe. It seems to be just the apparatus and the convenience is changing the way people take the medicine. I like to see how you guys feel about it, whether it's going in a good direction.
You know, Rob, thank you so much for asking that question. One of the most important things that I want to bring across is this is again a change in the shift in how we think. We are all about dosing. It's freaking dosing. I'm like, my medicine doesn't kill. Okay, so we always say 3 things in my office. Start out low or very low and slow, and journal. We tell our patients to journal, always hydrate before you medicate. But I think the options that you guys are getting now, to have something in a form that is a capsule, that makes people feel comfortable, because that's our mentality again. Topicals and having things that where they have like a bar, a chocolate bar, and it says, you know, take 1 square. I think it's helping people to get used to it. So it's a step in the right direction.
That's the wrong panel to do that on.
Check, check, check. Hi, how are you all doing? How can we make sure that the proceeds and the profits don't go to militarizing our police force, which has already been militarized and I feel is only there to round us up and not be there to protect people from those who hurt? With no victim, I feel there's no crime. But how do we make sure that they're not going to put these what they considered this whole time, and we're locking us up for drugs? So these drugs that they called, and they're not going to bring them in here and make profit and then put it to militarize us and lock us back up.
You gotta get out there and be active. You can't rely on other people to do this. It's something we all have to do together. We can't just say, all right, we want this. Go send that guy to do it. We all have to be part of it. We all have to be vocal. You gotta get active. You gotta get into with the meetings of the people that are doing the things. And we like you said, we have to keep an eye on that, make sure it doesn't happen. But it's up to us. We can't just give the power to them.
I have so much respect for everyone on this panel, and I just wanted to mention Steve Mandile in particular. He felt passionate about helping veterans, and he actually started to sleep on the State House steps. And he stayed there. He stayed there for weeks and weeks at a time, and it actually made the news. And it didn't make the news the first night or the second night. It didn't happen for weeks later. Actually, would you like to talk about that? It's so inspiring. I really think that that's everyone should hear about. When you care about what it is you do, getting involved to the point where you don't wait for others, you act. And that's activism.
Yeah, it all started with when I had that one moment, like I tell people, I snowblowed in my driveway for the first time in 10 years, where before there were like Boy Scouts out there helping to shovel me out, firefighters and police that had plows would come by and plow my driveway, and I was just like, man, I took an hour, I felt fine, I listened to music, and when I was done, I was like, I'm done, like I just did this, like I don't understand why this is working, and no doctor ever told me to do this. So I found it to be like therapeutic out in the streets talking to everybody. I wasn't talking to just politicians, just certain people, but I was talking to people that had no idea what an opioid was. People that are like, well, what is it? I start telling them, well, it comes from a plant, it's mixed with other chemicals, it's created in a lab. For instance, there's heroin, and then there's clean heroin, which they call fentanyl and carfentanil now. It's just lab-produced drugs that are given to us that are also poisonous, to the point where we have to sign a freaking contract when we get it. Like, you're gonna take it, if you do anything like have a beer or anything and you die, or you go for a jog, because a lot of these will affect your breathing, that's your fault. We're not gonna cover you. So the therapy and meeting with both sides, like I would talk to the people in the State House, and I would also talk to the people that those people would never talk to outside the State House, and learn that a lot of what it was like the whole knowledge thing. The people inside don't know about it. The people outside don't know about the other side, and you just got to get all that knowledge out there. And that was the best part of it. That's what made standing out there and knowing that come the morning I'd have to find a bathroom that I didn't have to pay to go use. Like, I didn't care about it. I was like, all right, it's better than being in my bed. It's better than laying around in my room and doing nothing, just wishing I could, just thinking maybe I wish I could have died back in Iraq instead. I wish I never came home, because I don't feel like I'm even alive. I feel like the person that I was died over there, and I came back damaged to the point where, I started in the system of the VA and believing it and buying into that, telling you, oh, you're disabled, you're 100% disabled, you can't ever do this, you can't ever do that. I listened to that forever, and I was like, well, all right, you're right. I can't go run a 5K. I can't go out and make millions of dollars, but I'm a pretty big guy. I'm a pretty loud guy, so I'll just go out there and be seen, and I'll make some noise. And, you know, it didn't get covered by the media because of when I climbed up on top of the Fox News van. They got really pissed at us, so I think I got like blacklisted. But whatever, you know, they're gonna eventually. When you're doing the right thing, they eventually have to come around anyways. So kill them with kindness all day.
Everybody here has really put in a lot of contributions, in the community, but also personally. You know, I think everybody has different levels of their activism. You can be a national activist, like many of the people here. You can be a local activist. You can be the activist in your family. You know, you'll be the guy in Thanksgiving, you know, that girl at Thanksgiving that's always maybe the only voice or reason your family gets. But it all starts somewhere, you know, that activism seed starts somewhere, and, you know, you should nurture it, and you should get out and be a part of something, and it benefits you to do that, you know, to be active, but it also benefits somebody else, you know, like all of you here today are listening to their story and their experiences, and you'll take it, and hopefully you'll teach somebody else, and then it will grow and grow. And hopefully at events like today, the Freedom Rally, you know, there are young activists here who will step up and keep the ball rolling for future legislation, for things that need to be changed. Because that's the only way anything's ever going to change. That's the only way we got decrim in 2008. That's the only way we got medical in 2012. And if you take a look at the situation with the DPH, it's just because we even voted on it, it's not a given. We still fight in tooth and nail to get the programs in place that we have now. And I believe it's 7 dispensaries open in the state of Massachusetts now, 4 years later. You know, so we gotta keep at it. We gotta make sure our patients have their medicine and have access to these things. I want to just go down and let everybody give one last word, and I just want to thank everybody for coming out. Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Chris, too, for doing this, and thank you everyone for coming. The big message, I guess, is vote yes on Foye. Stop letting someone else try to tell you what's best for you. Take it in your own hands, and the simplest way we do it here in America is going out and voting, so that's what we have to do. That's my message.
I also want to thank Chris. Thanks for being so accommodating every time we come up to Boston, man. We love you. And come down to Philly anytime. All you guys, we have these huge parties down in Philly. You should definitely come check them out. Every one of you can be an activist. All you have to do is stand up and yell and make your voice heard. And, you know, get up and do it. We can't do all the fighting alone. We need all of you to help us. So, you know, stand up and say, you know, as my friend NJ Weedman down in New Jersey says, fuck the law, smoke it anyway, right? So that's what we're doing here. Thank you.
I just want to end with, I was just in an entrepreneur program, and I had to come up with a survey. One of my survey questions was to ask how many people themselves have a debilitating or life-threatening illness or someone that they know. And out of that survey, there was over 75% of the respondents that answered yes to that. One of the other questions I asked was, would you recommend or would you talk to somebody about cannabis, or what would you do for alternative therapy? And over 80% of the respondents said that they would talk to someone or consider using cannabis as therapy. That right there is huge. 1000 Watts magazine just did a story on my journey, and my mother is 87 years old and very much against what I'm doing. I brought the magazine to her because she doesn't understand social media, and she sat down and she read the article, and it changed her. It changed how she thought. Her age group is used to magazines in the doctor's office and that kind of thing. Once she read that article, she said, why didn't you share this with your brothers? Why didn't you do something about this? because I'm battling discrimination in my own family as well. So if you believe it and if you know it can help you, just stand tall, because the other piece of illness is that you have to stay positive, because if you are negative on the inside, I really do believe that it enhances illness. I think that's why my cancer came back the second time. So you know what you want to do and what you need to do. And if cannabis is that, then stand up for that and be proud of that. And as they've said on the panel, you know, it takes, you educate, how's yours? Educate,
embrace, and empower. Reach 1, teach 10.
Okay, so reach 1, teach 10. I've heard that first today, but it's amazing because there is so much truth to that.
Thank you. I want to give you guys all a hand for yourselves. It's a two-way street for me, because I've been empowered because of my patients. Like I said, I get to see them educating, and they're getting out the word. They're feeling comfortable in their own skin, and we are changing the stigma one person at a time, and it is happening. And we need to let people know that you have a choice. 10 years ago, I started a company called Global Health and Hygiene Solutions, which was to promote wellness, prevent illness. I had no idea my journey was going to include cannabis. I had no idea I was going to lose my mother. My sorrow has become my purpose, and I love you guys, and you guys give me the encouragement to do what I'm doing every day. Thank you.
I just wanted to remind everyone that there's nothing you can't do. Like we've all been saying, all it takes is you saying, I'm going to get involved, I want to get involved, but realizing you need to get involved. Every single one of us has the ability to teach ourselves and reach our family, reach our friends, talk to people that would never consider cannabis as an alternative or understand the reasons why it needs to be descheduled, why we need a better medical program in the state of Massachusetts and throughout the United States. So let's work on getting it legalized, and let's work on getting it descheduled so that we can all have cannabis for everybody.
First of all, you guys are all like awesome, and I'm just so stoked to even be sitting here. Just want to say, grow your own, you know, do some research, look into what people before you did and do that, or, you know, ask them for advice. You know, breaking the law is great, but going out and voting for a law that's going to help sick people, you better get out and do that if you're registered to vote. There's people registering folks to vote here. You know, it's very, very important. If you're a vet or you have a family member that's a vet and struggling with the VA, pretty much contact any of these people up here. This guy over here, Steven, and man, just meeting you guys is great. And thank you all very much. And yeah, smoke hash, smoke pot.
One last time, I want to thank everybody here. You guys did an amazing job, and they continue to do amazing jobs in every aspect of this community that they're in. And I want to thank everybody for spending some time with us. And I just want to leave you with the one last figure that really keeps us going in this, 22 service members take their own lives every single day. And we think that that number can come down if they're educated about the benefits of cannabis. So thank you all for coming out.
And now on Tuesday, November 8th, I'm voting yes on question 4 because ending the prohibition of cannabis in the Commonwealth is the right thing to do for our families, our communities, and our future as a society. Cannabis means jobs. Cannabis means wellness. Cannabis means a healthier environment. Cannabis means revenue to help our schools and infrastructure. Cannabis means less addiction to pharmaceuticals and alcohol. Cannabis means a kinder, gentler society. 6 people are going to die today because they drank too much alcohol. 1,300 people are going to die today because they smoke cigarettes. No one in 5 million years has died because they had too much cannabis.